So a little bit of news about Amy for you team who are just joining us. Amy is the person that if you were joining us the night that the tomfoolery with the Equal Pay Act got messed around with, Amy is the person that Jan Tinetti said, believe it or not, because of our world-class, world-leading equal pay legislation, there is someone right now as we speak in Iceland talking about this stuff. That person that Jan Tinetti was talking about is Amy Ross, and she joins us right now. Good evening again, Amy.
Good evening. Goodness, I just came back in. I got kicked out and now I'm back in.
Yeah, you're back
Excellent.
in. I was just saying, Amy, that we spoke to Jan Tinetti last week and she said, oh, it's so ironic that we've got this world-class, world-leading legislation. It's so world-class and so world-leading that the rest of the world wants to know about it. There's a person from New Zealand right now, as we speak, talking about equal pay and equality and pay and all that over in Iceland at the moment, and that's you, correct? That's the person that she was talking about.
That's right, yes.
I want to talk about the whole issue and kind of throw you the ball to actually talk to us about what's been going on. But I am really intrigued, as you are an expert in this area, and we'll get to the work ethics website in a bit. But you would have, I'm assuming, sort of got that information late night in Iceland and then gone back and worked with people in Iceland the next day. And the next day, your country wasn't quite as proficient in the equal pay area that it was the day before. What happened in Iceland? What did you do in Iceland? And how did you explain to the people, hey, you know that world leading stuff? Well, it's not so much anymore. I'm really intrigued as to what happened to you the day after with explanations.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I had to stand up in front of the next day's audience and not cry, actually, which was because it was very, very hard to be talking about things that I am incredibly proud of and that I know that women for decades have put a lot of work into achieving, and know that it was just gone effectively overnight. But also I think that we had a really open and honest conversation about this is actually something that they also need to prepare for, because when you have a system which actually delivers change and is actually putting real money into real people's hands and delivering a human right, you will get a backlash, because people don't like losing the business model that allows them to build their businesses on the underpaid labour of women. And so there's a pushback. And in fact, it's almost a demonstration of the legislation's success, the fact that we're now getting such a pushback. And so we were able to sort of say, how can we support, or how can I support Iceland to take the opportunity they have now, which is while they have political support and they have the will to make change, to actually grab it with both hands, because there will be a point where you do get that pushback. And so we're able to have that conversation.
So with that pushback having happened in New Zealand, and with the work you're doing with your company, Work Ethics, if when you get back to New Zealand and you get a chance to speak to the government or the people who are changing, what would you be saying to them about what they've done?
I would be saying that the changes are a huge mistake. It's the idea even that you can save money is short-sighted, because while that might be a short-term saving, the long-term cost is astronomical. It is proven that when you actually invest and you have fair wages and a good workplace, people stay, you have a much higher degree of productivity, you have people engaged, people spend money in their communities, it creates more jobs. I mean, it makes so much sense. And that what will end up is having very expensive, very drawn-out conflict in court. And it just seems nonsensical to me. And in fact, this is what the Pay Equity Principles Working Group was put together to avoid, this kind of conflict.
We had economist Craig Rennie on that night as well when we had Jan on, and he also pointed out that this will mean more money that the government has to pay out as well, because people will become the working poor more likely if their wages aren't kept up as well. Chewie, sir, questions, comments?
Yeah, I can't imagine what it was like being there for that purpose and then
Mm.
having this happen at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, we were first of all, I just want to say to our audience last week, I was explaining the 1975 women's strike in Iceland, which is
Hmm.
one of my favorite pieces of industrial action because I like to party. Um, so, I mean, that had quite wide-ranging effects for their society,
Yeah.
right? A line was drawn in the sand, and a short, sharp shock to the system seemed to develop really long-lasting change for their society. Correct?
Yeah. That's right. And it was done again only 2 years ago. They did the same thing. So there's a big culture of everybody out, and we're going to talk about the issues that are still going on for women. And that's not just pay equity, but it's gender-based violence. It's a whole range of
Mhm.
things. And so they're very much supportive. And in fact, I'm going to meet with some leaders of that movement here while I'm here, of us doing the same thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there any lessons there from their
Yeah.
experience that would apply to our society as well? Glad is the wrong word. Glad to hear you mention gender-based violence. That's something New Zealand has a problem with as well.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it really does seem that we can crib some ideas from other countries, other societies to improve our situation here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And kind of show that unity. Let's stand together and we're not going to accept this. And what was unique, I think you'll know about the Iceland women's strike, is that in both instances it wasn't just paid work, it was the removal of
Mm.
all that unpaid work that women do. And I think that's making a very significant point. And because things just fall over when women don't contribute as they are doing constantly. So I think it really showed, and that's what made the changes, is that, oh, we actually can't function without women. Better do something about looking after them in society. Mm.
Amy, I'm wondering if you can help us all out, because what we do is we get input from the media and we hear voices. We're not in the thick of it like yourself, you know,
Hmm.
educating people, etc. And we hear things like, how can a librarian compare themselves to an air traffic controller? I mean, that's ridiculous. If you want the air traffic controller's wage, then become an air traffic controller. That's what we hear. Is there a way that you can give us, let's say people watching right now want
Hmm.
to know how to answer Uncle Bob when he's put that out on Facebook? Can you give us, I'm not looking like a trick, but like what's the elevator pitch for what we can use, the information we need to be able to communicate clearly why this is a good idea? Not even that, yeah, why we need it and why it's a good idea.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that our language has been a bit confusing for people here, because when we say comparable, our brains instantly think that means the same. And so when we think about very different work, like an engineer and a librarian, we think that's crazy. What on earth is going on here? Are we
Mhm.
saying that they are suddenly working with these tools and doing maths, librarians? And we're not saying that. What it is, in fact, it's lifting us up to a different level and removing our instant assumptions and bias about tasks, and saying underneath a task that you might do in your job are some skills, and there might be some effort, and there's responsibilities that you have. And so by looking at things that are very different, it enables us to look underneath at what are the skills, responsibilities, and effort required. And something that's quite different allows us to do that, because it's putting us below that front facing task and investigating. So it's not about the similar tasks or what's being done, it's the level of skill, responsibility, and effort. And then you should be able to say, seeing as a job is about being paid for the skills
Mhm.
that you bring and your responsibility that you hold, if you have two very different jobs that are operating at that same level, they're bringing the same level of skills and they have the same level of responsibilities, why are they being paid differently? Let's have that conversation, because that makes no
Mm.
sense. And this that kind of idea then challenges us to think about work differently. Oh, is it we're just simply not valuing some skills? Yes, actually, that is what's happening. There's a whole lot of stuff being done in work which is just not seen as skilled, because it's not been, men haven't done it. And this, a really interesting thing to think about, is that when computers first came out,
Mhm.
coding and programming of computers, because it wasn't very well
Yes.
understood, people are like, oh, well, that's an administrative task for women. That's easy. And it was actually women who did all that first computer coding and programming. And it was only when they were considered important to society, they were like, oh, well, men better do that. And then it was very well paid. So it's actually sometimes we just don't understand what is skilled because we don't perceive it to be so. So it challenges us to look beyond the task and at the skill.
Chewie, do you have anything else? I've got one other question, but if you've got another one, jump in now, and then we can wrap it up and say goodbye to Amy.
I love that you brought up the early programmers all being women,
Yeah.
because it was seen as tedious and repetitive and needing a high degree of accuracy. Let's have the chicks do that. I'll
Yep.
just sit in my manager's office. Yeah, very true. And the other example that was brought out that's kind of the reverse of that is, if you go back 40, 50 years, most secondary school teachers were male, and they were really well paid, equivalent to a backbench MP.
Yeah.
And then that switched.
Yeah. Yes, because when men do it, it's very important and skilled. And when women do it, we're just naturally, inherently good at caring. So it's not really a skill, right?
Oh, it's just in my own working career, it's something that grows. This is completely separate. I'm just going to have a whinge here. I'm a man that works in retail technology. The amount of people that will come to me as a man to explain something that any one of my female colleagues that have been working there longer than me will know backwards and front, and I'm like, are we still doing this? It's really cringe.
Yeah. Hey, I wanted to, if I could, just quickly, because I don't think people have covered this a lot in the media, is talk about the fact that introducing the right to phase in pay equity settlements.
Okay.
And because I think this is a really interesting point, because what other aspect of our human rights do we say you can only have a little piece of them at a time? If we've identified undervaluation based on gender, if we're saying, oh yeah, we can see that you're underpaid because you're a woman, but we're only going to correct that over the next 3 years. So you can have part of your human right this year, part of it next year, and part of it the year after. Where the hell else do you see that? Does that mean that woman should therefore go, well, I'll only do part of my job this year, I'll do part of it next year, and I might do the whole thing when you actually pay me for the whole thing? It's crazy that that they're trying to allow for phasing in, because it's basically wage theft.
You think about, I mean, a lot of the examples you think about in our modern time is, for example, in America, drinking at the right fountain. It's like saying, well, you can drink at the fountains that are on this side of the building, but not the others. And then next year and then in 3 years you can drink at any fountain you want. I was wondering about your thoughts around something that I thought about this weekend, Amy. You know, there's those 33 current cases that are going through, and they're basically all being cancelled. Chewie, happy to get your thoughts on this as well. It's like that would have had time and literal resource, money spent on it, and all sorts of stuff. I mean, surely those groups, those organisations, those individuals should now be going to the government going, you owe us for the 6 years worth of work and all of this legal advice. I wonder if there's a case to be had that there could be a few lawsuits going on around this. Not even for the right. I'm not saying they shouldn't get the right, but for what they've spent that this government's just cancelled. I think we said last week, it's strange how the government of business doesn't seem to honour contracts very readily, do they? They like to get rid of them quite quickly.
Yeah, and they're talking about sort of being efficient and using money sensibly. And in fact, all of that money, those skilled people's time that they're putting in over years to do research, investigation, analysis, and put together really strong evidence, that's just wasted money now, because effectively they have to start again. It's absolutely irresponsible.
I think the last thing before we let you go, and thank you for giving us some time this evening, as we saw on the day the announcement was made, there was protest organised 90 minutes later on the front door of Parliament. I get a few whispers that Budget Day is going to be a big day. What should we be doing, Amy? In your opinion, what should we, the public, be doing? How can we action something? What should we be doing to voice our distaste about this whole thing?
I think we just have to keep talking about it, and we can't let anyone forget. So actions have to be now, but they have to also be ongoing, and we must continue to put pay equity in a human rights framework, because it fundamentally is a human right. It's not a benefit for women. It's not a nice to have. It is something really fundamental. And we also have to recognise that we had some of the most world-leading ability to address pay equity, but also the ethnic pay gap. We were creating tools. We created the first tool in the world with an intersectional approach, Te Ora Waru, and that we were standing up and stepping forward. And this is an opportunity lost. So we need to keep having this conversation, and we need to make it cost the government, because they can't steal from women to plug a hole and get away with it.
Yeah. All right. If people want to know more about you, Amy, your website is the best place to go?
Yep, absolutely.
Website is worthethics.nz. Enjoy your time in Iceland. As I said, very, very jealous. Thank you so much for giving us some time this evening, our time, and all the best, and keep the good fight going.
Thank you.